Hey my friends, welcome to Phyllis's How-To Studio. Today I want to show you another how-to video to hopefully inspire you to fill up your sketchbook. How to draw a pansy is taken straight from one of the 1921 primers by E.G. Lutz. That was a commonly used textbook in schools back in the 1920s and 1930s and 40s, back when they used to teach drawing to every student as a subject in elementary school. You were probably not taught that. They stopped teaching it decades ago, and so unless you take an extracurricular art class, you are not usually taught to draw as a subject. This page about how to draw a pansy is the one that we will be working from today. Here are the supplies you'll need to paint this cute little pansy. You would need some watercolor paper, so that's kind of thick and can hold water and not get wrinkly. You'll need a pencil, a fountain pen. It has ink in it that is not waterproof, and so it kind of helped me with my shading, as you will see. And also you'll need brushes and watercolors of any sort, student grade, professional. You'll need an eraser and acrylic pens. And so if you have some of those on hand, that's good for your details. Here on the screen are the 6 steps that we will be using to draw the pansy. So you are welcome to pause the video, take a screenshot of this so you can refer to it later if you wish to do that. So step 1, you will use anything round or freehand, a circle. You draw a little line through the center and put a dot right in the middle, and then a little X right below the center. Then a loop to the left and a loop to the right for the tops of those 2 petals. The next step is coming off the bottom part of the X is a couple loops down at the bottom. We're doing all this in pencil. You're going to be erasing the pencil later. Then after that, you'll draw the top 2 petals up there. In this next step, just some little loopy lines up there for your top 2 petals. And then the 6th steps is a little stem and a wiggly little waves for a leaf. And then you've got the basics done. Now I like to erase all but a few little lines to give me some guidance. Now I am going to be using my fountain pen, and it has ink in it that is water soluble, and you will see why I did that when I get to the watercolor part. So you notice with my watercolor, I tried with my first pass to fill in the middle parts of the petals in varying intensities without touching the ink line. Because when I touch that ink line, it will flow into the watercolors, and I kind of wanted to save that for later. So in my first pass, I filled in without touching the edges. I am intentionally leaving the middle part blank white so that I can do some good detailing in there. Now, it's really important to dry things up really good before you go for your second pass. I have a hair dryer plugged in right next to my workstation so that I can dry paint when I need to dry it. After the watercolors dry, I'll go with my second pass, and I touch the outside ink lines this time with the watercolor and use that as shading, even using it to pull lines of color or darkness down into the petals as I go, and I just use that ink line as my shading. Now is kind of the time to get out your acrylic markers. or your Toolis or your Posca pens and do those details in the center of a pansy. You could look at a photo to get a reference. The face of a pansy sometimes looks like a human face or an angel, and so you can really get into the details there, and so that's why it's great to use these acrylic markers for it. Now, one little trick you can do is get a wet paintbrush, wet with water, and while the acrylic is still wet, you can pull out some little details. I pulled some little lines into my petals that and then I did the little white center and I darkened it up in between with my acrylics. Now I like to mix a couple different shades of green into my stems and leaves. And also my petals, I use several different shades of red. I didn't just stick with one, and it just gives you a little bit more interesting color. And then I add details along the edges. I always like to make the center of the flower the most interesting and eye-catching by putting a lot of detail right in the center. And I use the skinny edge of my fountain pen to make some very fine detail lines. The acrylic adds some little dots as it appears on my photos. Little fun bits and the little edges. And then I get to do some little splashes with a paintbrush that is loaded with watery watercolor. Now that you know how to draw a pansy, you can use this in any of your creative pursuits. If you like to do creative journaling with mixed media, you could apply that. I used this technique for drawing a pansy on top of my uncle's grade books. I have his grade books from when he taught school back in 1947, and I painted white in the negative space and let the lines of the pansy show the original handwriting for this mixed media page. Then I got a couple of these really cool Uglybooks, which have really bright colored cardstock in them. And I used my acrylic pens to draw this yellow pansy that has kind of an angel shape. There are pansies with an angel pattern in the middle. So I hope you enjoy applying this technique to whatever you wish. Thanks for listening, and fill up your sketchbook.